thank you all for joining us today. We have another wonderful TaskHuman session with Coach Dacia, who is going to be talking to us about enhancing your daily routine, which I think last week we had a morning makeover session, and we got to talk about ways to enhance our mornings and really feel prepared for the day. And now we're moving into how to actually use that preparedness and structure your day when there's so many things going on in the world, in our lives, and in our minds, honestly. So staying present and really using tools that are going to work for you for whatever you need to do to be productive or present or mindful. I think we'll be able to touch on all of those. And we have, a smaller group today. I'd love to hear from everybody. You can turn your video on if you want, unmute yourself. We can have some sort of a discussion. And for everybody who does not know, I think, we have some repeat people. Thank you. It's good to see you. TaskHuman is a one-on-one wellness coaching app. So you can download, I'll be sending a link out for 30 free minutes where you can use those minutes on any coach, Dacia being one of them, for as long as you want, and you get to choose how much time you spend with them, and you can talk about anything you want. So we have coaches literally from physical fitness to mental, emotional health to relationship coaching to work-life balance. Any feeling that you're feeling, you can type in the engine and it'll give you a coach to work with. So I really do encourage you to check it out. It's there for you to use. I think we all have things we could talk to somebody about. So I do encourage you to use that, and you'll be getting a link, like I said. I will also chat it out during the session. So feel free to use the chat as well. And with that, I welcome everybody and thank you for turning some of your videos on. It's nice to see faces. And I'll turn it over to Dacia.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, it is really great to see some of you guys. Thanks for being here. It's exciting, and I'm stoked that you decided to join in today. I'm going to go ahead and share a presentation with you guys. So I'll share my screen with you, and we'll start there. Yeah, and so we're just going to dive in and kind of talk about and chat on our daily schedules and being efficient with your time. I believe that your guys' time is valuable. So in those next 20 to 30 minutes, we're going to go over a multitude of strategies. And while I'm going to share some of my personal and professional experience, I really believe that you guys are the experts on your own schedule. You have more information about you than I or anyone ever will. And so with that, as we go through these on a lot of the tools or techniques, there's also questions and prompts that are going to ask you to dive into your own thought processes and happenings a little bit further. So I would encourage you, if you're a note taker, whether it's notebook and pen or you open another tab on your computer, to write some of those down so that we can either have the answers to them or you can reflect back on them later. Sounds like you guys had an awesome session last week about your morning routines, and just like your morning routine can be personal and unique and it's going to be individualized, so is your time management throughout the day. I'm not going to know what's best for you, but we do know, because you're here, that we have some time management skills and we are successful. And so before we dive into other techniques and strategies, I want to just take a pause. And we're going to take a moment just to reflect on what you already do and what's working for you. So if you have notes, notebook, or a computer screen, an extra tab, I would encourage you to just answer these first couple of questions for me. And they can be as simple as yes and no. Do you have time management strategies in place throughout your day? And then, are they working? And finally, the one that might take I'm going to give you 60 seconds or so, maybe a couple minutes, is just specifically what is working and what isn't working. These don't have to be super complex, but just take a couple of seconds of what feels good and helps me, and where am I feeling challenged? What seems like a barrier? Good. Some things that you might touch on is, work environment, collaborative settings, your phone, music, anything like those. They can be small things or big things. And then go ahead and just keep those answers in mind as we continue so that it's kind of at the forefront of your brain of what might stand out and what might align with you and what you need. So even though our day-to-day happenings and our management techniques are pretty unique and personal, there are some pretty common barriers to success when it comes to efficient time management. One pretty common one that comes up is stress and burnout or unexpected emotions that can throw us off of what we had planned for the day. Another one is clarity. If we don't know what we're supposed to be doing, it can be hard to feel efficient or productive. Time and perception of time also often comes up. And then finally, or the fourth one, interruptions, distractions, or even just difficulty focusing. If you're writing those down and a couple of them stand out for you, maybe put an asterisk by that, just to help bring some awareness to where you're noticing things. So if we talk about those 4 barriers, then we can also meet them with 4 strategies for success or 4 game plans. Those are going to be preparing and prioritizing, setting the scene, utilizing increments, and building stress awareness. We'll dive into all 4 of these a little bit deeper, but before we do that, I just want to note that there's the potential that a lot of this feels applicable for you, and that's awesome. I really hope that that's true. But I would encourage you to maybe lean in to one thing, write them all down, and then if you walk away from this and want to implement something, choose one thing. And then if you get that down and it works and it adds to your routine, then you could add another. Or if you notice like this isn't helping me, then we can ditch it and we'll try something new. So anything that's applicable, make a note of, but maybe lean into what feels most applicable. All right, so starting, if you guys were at the session last week, you might have kind of talked about starting your day with a plan or preparations. But what I kind of want to touch on is just that managing our time well requires clarity. You know, if I don't know where I'm going, it's really hard to get there. And so one way that I really like to do this is by a physical handwritten list in a place that I'm going to see it often. If you're not a handwritten person, maybe your Google Calendar, maybe the Notes app on your phone, but clarity can become a super strength. So on that to-do list, what I like to do is 3 to 5 have-tos. So those are necessities of the day. They need to be touched and they need to be approached. After that, then I'm going to list 2 to 3 it would be nice tos. So these are things that it would feel good, it'd be great, it maybe would help future me if I could get to those today. And then instead of just piling on things that I should or want to do, I also like to write down 2 stress mitigation tactics. So it is not uncommon that some stress comes up through the day, whatever it looks like or wherever it comes from. And so if I have strategies in my back pocket to help me manage that stress, then it can be less overwhelming. And self-care techniques like that could be a face mask and a bubble bath. Some days it is for me, but it can also be knowing that a 10-minute walk clears your head and regulates your breath, and that's helpful for you. So just having them written down. And then the second piece of this is prioritization. So once I have my list written, I like to ask, okay, what on that really matters? What am I just trying to stay busy with? Because another piece of being productive with our day is feeling productive with our day. And that means doing things that have value to us. And so if you consider that piece of it, you might have to go back into your list and adjust. And that's okay. But hopefully then at the end of the day, when we reevaluate, we can say like, yes, I did these things for myself. So we have our list, we have our things to do. I don't know about you guys, but this year my work environment has changed a lot. I went from being in an office and being in a gym to being in my kitchen or on the back patio. And those are very different work environments. And initially it didn't support my work in any capacity. So the good thing is that we can build those environments for ourselves. It just takes a little bit of checking in. On this, I would ask you to ask yourself, how do I work best? And how can I create that for myself in my current space? And that might be as small as I work best in silence. Okay, what can I do? Can I wear headphones? Or I work best in a collaborative setting. Okay, can I get someone to meet me at a coffee shop so that I have that structured place of work? And it's going to be individual for you, and that's perfect, and that's okay. The other element of the environment that we work in is the people that we work around. Recently, I went from working with coworkers to working with roommates because we all were transitioned to working at home. And while that is okay, it presented new challenges because we didn't know as necessarily how to support ourselves and support each other in that new setting. And that can be kind of frustrating, but we've learned and have been implementing with some clear communication and the courage to stand behind that. It not only supported my work, but it also supported those relationships. If you think about it, it feels kind of crappy to feel like you're only getting 0.05% of someone's attention. And if you know, like, I'm going to get this and what I need later, it can be a lot more satisfying in that environment. And if you're anything like me, communicating can be a little bit intimidating initially, but I've learned that there are about 3 things that make for some great communication, and that is validation, summarization, and then clear communication. So if you look at those second 2 bullet points, let's say I was in the middle of a project and my boss sent me an email, maybe not my boss, maybe a coworker, but I really need to stay on my project, then I would say something as simple as, hey, I see your email. I'm going to be on this project until 4 p.m., but I'll reach out to you after. If you don't hear from me, please follow up. Or if I'm at home and I'm working and my roommate interrupts or my spouse interrupts, then I might wait for a lull in that conversation and tell them, I'm glad you're comfortable sharing this with me. I am going to finish working on this project in 15 minutes, 1 hour, and then I will be able to give you my full attention. Not only does this free up your space and allow you the situation that you might need to work in, it also supports that other person because they know when and what they can expect from you, which is cool. Doesn't have anything to do with time management, but it's kind of nice to support people. If you are a time management champ or we've gotten to this point and you're like, yes, I have my list. I know what's prioritized. Like my environment is killer. I communicate like a boss. Kudos to you. That's awesome. But there are some other elements of task management for sure that can be considered. Sometimes whether it's that I write my to-do list and I'm like, these feel big, or I know that they're valuable and they need to happen, but I'm not interested in doing them. Those instances are where I like to utilize increments. So essentially, there's a couple different ways that I'll do this. The first is utilizing a timer. So let's say I'm a coach, so I do client check-ins. Let's say I have 4 client check-ins to do today. I want to walk the dog, and I also have some reading to do for school. So I'm having a hard time getting into them. I'll set a timer for maybe 7 or 17 minutes, and I tell myself, like, I'm just going to work on this for 17 minutes. I'm just going to start it. And then sometimes, that timer is all that I achieve and I have to psych myself up and do another timer, but other times I hit that flow and just having that intro period really gets things going. The second thing is to just set smaller goals. If something feels too big, it can be helpful to not think about the big picture, but instead, if we're talking about a deadline, we have a month to do something, think about where would I like to be at the end of this week? And then even smaller than that, what do I need to do today to move myself in that direction? The cool thing about small goals is that if you achieve them or exceed them, there's nothing that says you can't reset and go bigger the next time. You can't grow on it. You can't get X amount of the project done and be like, you know what, this is clicking today. I'm going to do more. That's awesome. But by setting that small goal, we not only work on it, but we also start to add to our self-efficacy, or we're telling ourselves and proving to ourselves that like, I can do this, and our brain starts to catch that narrative. The last thing I like to utilize increments for, I don't know if you guys have ever heard or maybe use the like sentiment of do the thing you don't want to do first so that you can do what you want to do as a treat. Maybe that works for you, but that has never worked for me. I can't get myself past that hump. So what I like to do is I'll use small tasks or enjoyable fun tasks as a warm-up, just to get myself in that productive mindset. So if we kind of reflect on those, my last to-do example, if I got home from a workout and I'm like have sat down and I'm like, okay, check-ins, dog, reading. The check-ins I know are pretty emotionally, mentally demanding, but I know that walking the dog isn't. And so I might take the dog for a 10-minute walk just to get myself up and moving, and then sit down into that more demanding task. Might not work for you. Maybe you guys like to nosedive into the big stuff. That's awesome. None of it's wrong. All right, guys, this next one is something that I think can get skipped over in terms of time management, and that's just stress awareness. We rarely ever perform our best when we are stressed, nervous, upset. We feel like we don't have the resources we need, and that might cause anxiety. But I don't think we always often check in with ourselves to make sure that, I'm in a good place to do this next thing. And that's where I like to use the stoplight metaphor or analogy. One of you guys might be better at English grammar in that, whichever it is. Yeah, analogy, metaphor. But I like to use a stoplight, and it's just how you think of a stoplight. So green light would mean you're in the clear, full speed ahead, go do it, do the task. But sometimes you might sit down to do something or get up to do something, and that's not the case. In that case, I would term it a yellow light. So whether it's that you don't feel like you have the resources you need, emotionally you feel a little off kilter, and so your focus isn't great, and there's just something that doesn't feel like a yes. So that doesn't necessarily mean that I wouldn't go into the task, but I would proceed with some additional awareness. If I don't feel like I have the resources, is there a way that I can get them? If I don't feel like I have the support, is there a place that I could reach out to? If I'm not, at the best, like mental, like cognition, I'm tired, is there something I can do to support myself there? And then one step further away from the green light is a red light. And like you all know, red light means stop. Some things we're not supposed to be going right now. For me personally, a red light sounds like or looks like maybe extreme fatigue, to the point that like nothing, the lights are on, but no one's home. Or on the other end of the spectrum, I am so caught up in my nerves or so overwhelmed by what's happening that like I can't slow my thoughts down enough to make a cognizant addition to my work. In either of those instances, the pause and a stop is really worthwhile, because we aren't going to do anything great for ourselves from that really tense point. And so this is where those stress mitigation tactics that we wrote down earlier in our talking come into play. What helps me if I'm super nervous? What helps me relieve stress and come, even if it's just to a yellow light? If I'm super tired, so much so that I'm not productive, what do I need? Is it a coffee? Is it sleep? Do I need to rest? And then taking that time for yourself, knowing that adjusting that is productive. It's not a waste of your time to make sure that you are in a good place to be productive. If any of these, or the stress awareness tactic of it, is something that you feel like you could use some more conversation on or resources on, maybe pinpoint this or put an exclamation point on it. And then there's some time at the end here where we'll do a little bit of a Q&A, and we can walk through some of those things. So after our day, if we have prepared, we've prioritized, we've set the scene, we are utilizing increments if we need to, and throughout the day checking on our stress awareness, at the end of the day, I like to do just a little check-in with myself. And again, like how we started this, it's really brief, like maybe 60 seconds. Just a couple of questions of what went well, how did I move myself forward today, and then what can I do tonight to set myself up for success tomorrow? It doesn't have to be another hour-long project. It might be, I said I wanted to go to the gym tomorrow. I'm going to put my shoes out. It might be, man, it would be great to have a nutritious lunch. I'm going to make supper with leftovers so that I can take it. And then tomorrow you get to be super grateful because you were cared for, and that's nice. The last talking point that I have, little tidbit here, is that throughout all of this, if you identify with being a perfectionist, I want to just note and touch on an expectation check. Because I don't know if anyone has listened to or reads Brené Brown, but she uses the term as a recovering perfectionist, and I really love that. Because if we think about it, if perfection is our goal, failure is the only option. So it's easier kind of for me if I think about it with my friend or a loved one, parent, child, anyone, but we would never expect them to be perfect. I mean, mistakes and blunders are a part of everything. And yet when we think about ourselves, a lot of the times we hold ourselves to this impossible standard. And I'm not saying standards aren't good. They are, they're great, but perfection isn't possible. And it's easy to see when we talk about it with someone else, but oftentimes I think perfection gets glorified as this super strength or as the golden ticket to success, when really perfectionistic tendencies can undermine our success because it isn't possible. So if we're working to perfection, like perfect isn't possible. The only option that I have created for myself isn't possible to begin with. Failure is the only viable result. And if we always live to that standard and we always can't meet our expectation, we can begin to internalize this narrative that we can't. And I don't know about you guys, but if I go into something and every other time I've tried, I am let down or disappointed because I just couldn't succeed, at some point, trying feels somewhat futile. So we can get in our own way while we think, perfect is this great standard to stand by. We're never going to achieve it. And so if that's our bar, we can start to kind of mentally tiptoe or lean back and away from trying things because we're always failing. Alternatively, though, if you promise yourselves, or I promise myself, that I'm going to do the best that I can with the knowledge that I possess and the resources that I have right now, I can do that and I can move forward. So it's 100% controllable, and your best is going to vary from day to day, but that's just an honest check-in with myself of, is this my best? Is this what I have to offer to the day? If it's a yes, then heck yes, let's go. And if it's a no, then maybe just some accountability of, okay, well, why not? And that doesn't mean every day is going to be 100, but the effort is different, because over time, if your goal and your tagline is your best, and you do that, you prove to yourself that I can do my best, that shifts that internal narrative from always being disappointed to continually achieving and progressing, and it's a much more realistic expectation. All right, guys, I am gonna go ahead and just open this up for some questions. I don't know if I stop screen sharing, Laura, that we'll go back to just chatting.
Yeah. Awesome presentation. Thank you. I think the biggest thing here, is that we're always growing, and our expectations every day can kind of, if they're too high, we can feel disappointed instead of trying to grow and adjust them every day. So I'm wondering how this resonated with everybody, and if there are any questions on, yeah, Craig, feel free to unmute yourself.
Well, thank you. That was really good, just really a good remindful thing. What I find sometimes, I like the incremental piece that you put out. Sometimes when I work in increments, I want to limit my time on a project, but I get so fired up, and the motivation, because I've been told to get the space shuttle off the launching pad, it takes about 90% of the fuel just to clear the launching pad. But once you clear that launching pad and the motivation, sometimes you get on a roll. How do you keep in control so you don't get out of control in your incremental and say, oh, I'm going to give myself another 15 and another 50, and then you lose sight of what was really important that you really wanted to put more time into?
Yeah. One, it sounds like you already have some awesome awareness around that tendency, which I think is super cool. In that instance, that would be when I refer to that written to-do list and check in with myself. How am I doing on my have-to-dos today? You know, have I achieved these have-tos where I can indulge in this experience? Or do I need to bookmark this? I achieved what I needed to on this today, and now look at that other task. Does that make sense? Does that feel?
Yeah, and the other thing is sometimes I'll get fired up on a project, and you do these things over a few days, and then you lose interest. But that's where the list comes in. If I lose interest, maybe a smaller incremental period just to keep the fire going. And I guess that's, like you said, go back to your to-do list and see what you want to do instead of parking it in the backyard and not worrying about it for a while. Because usually my wife will remind me.
Well, I think it sounds like you got some good support. That brings, as you were saying that brought up the thought and kind of the topic stream of sometimes it feels like we have to do it all today. But if we think about the compound interest, I mean, I don't know how if you guys enjoy finance or health, or hopefully health, you're here. But if you think about, doing little bits every day is not only going to compound and grow for us, it's also more sustainable. And so if we can start to block those things into those spaces and then give ourselves time to do other things, those projects, hopefully, instead of a big burst of flame, we've got a nice warm ember that we can hold on to. Is there any other piece of that, Craig, that you had questions for? Or I think Michael, I don't know if you waved, if that was a question. Awesome, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments? Thumbs up, good. Lydia, yeah, go for it.
Well, thank you. It was a really awesome presentation. And I like the point that you made about, I was always taught the idea of doing the less pleasing tasks, and then you get to the other ones, and that kind of changed my mindset. And now trying to do things the other way around, I think I'm going to start doing that because it wasn't really working for me. So just even thinking about it in a different way, it gave me some ideas of trying to do things a different way. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad. That's never worked for me either. And I'm kind of jealous of people that it works for, but I hope the small tasks help you.
That's awesome. Anybody else out there? This is great. Awesome. Are there any questions? I just want to open up any questions on TaskHuman in general. I know some of you have the app, some of you don't. Any explanation you guys might need. I do encourage you to download. You can talk to Dacia more about these goals, how they're going for you, these changes that you're making, if you need more adjustments, what projects you're working on and how to break them up into smaller chunks too. super important. So I really want to thank everybody. I am going to just chat out that link for everybody to use. Again, you'll get a follow-up email with the recording of this session so you can see it anytime you want, reflect back on it, and keep those tips and tricks in your back pocket. Thank you to everybody who attended, who participated. And if you guys have any, topics that you're interested in, please don't hesitate to chat them as well. We can set up sessions on those topics as well. We're always looking for new topics. So if there's anything interesting to you guys, never hesitate to let me know. But if that's it from our group, then we're good for today. And thank you, Dacia. Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you guys.
Round of applause.
Oh, you guys are kind. I did want to mention with TaskHuman that if you're on TaskHuman, I did open availability through the end of this week and next week. So if you'd like to chat stress awareness, your own time management, I have some blocks out there. And if your time doesn't match mine, send me a message and we'll try and iron something out. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, you can always, the download is free and the chats with Dacia, the text messages are free. So you can always do that as well. So thank you all. I hope you guys are safe and well, and we'll see you next week for our next session.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.